Hello, my name is Kevin Saunders. I'm an actor, director, producer, and writer. I absolutely love filmmaking. I've always wanted to do it ever since I was a child, and I am happily now able to live the dream.
Welcome to Scratch, Claw, Push, a podcast about artists clawing out a place for themselves in the world. I'm Billy Joe Cones.
And I'm Brendan Duke. Let's go. I met you at a film event for one of our past guests, Naomi Smith. She was raising money for her short film, I Love You. And it's funny, I met you there, and I met a bunch of other people who are from the kind of the Baltimore, DC area, which I had met a bunch of other people at a prior film event who were from the Baltimore, DC area. So how do you start up there and then kind of work your way down to Atlanta?
Well, it's funny because that was not planned. That was that was actually kind of one of those weird synchronicity kind of moments. I'm just like, wait, because I also was having that moment like, wait, you're also from there? There was a few people that I already had known, but other people that I knew but didn't know they were there too. It was very weird. But cool though. I guess, yeah, us Marylanders will definitely, or DMVers, I should say, DC, Maryland, Virginia. We will definitely find each other somewhere in a crowd, which is hilarious. But I was born and raised in that area, so right outside of DC, and we all know about The Wire. The Wire was like the big show that was there. And then I would say the next biggest show is probably House of Cards. But we do a lot of on-location filming there. However, there's not a lot of shows. Those were our two big shows that were there. But movies will come, they'll film for a couple weeks and then leave. So ironically, when I was trying to get onto House of Cards, actually, I kept looking at Atlanta, and this Atlanta just kept popping up. And this casting director was like, well, I just flew in from Atlanta to help out with casting here. And she said, if you want to be an actor, you need to go there. And so that was kind of what sold me. And I've been here for 6 years now, and I've been loving it. I love Atlanta. I really did not know this was going to be a second home for me. I thought this was going to be a place where it's like, okay, I'm going to come here, I'm going to work, and I'm going to go to Cali or New York. But I'm here to stay. At least for right now, I do not see myself leaving. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah, it's funny. The group of people I met at the first film event where I met the group of Marylanders or DMVers, they actually, a lot of them had worked on House of Cards.
Yep. Yeah, because at the time, there were... Yeah, that was really it. I think Veep filmed a little bit in Northern Virginia. Northern Virginia has had a couple of the shows I filmed Dope Sick in Virginia in the Richmond area. The Good Lord Bird, that was, I think, with Ethan Hawke. That also was in Virginia. But really, it was at that time, at least, there was really not much else. And so if you were in film, the show to get on, especially around my age group, was House of Cards. So everyone tried to get on House of Cards in some capacity.
Were you? Did you happen to work on Wonder Woman 2 when it shot up there?
I believe I was here by that point. Yes, I believe I was here in Atlanta by that point. But I did know somebody that was in one of the scenes in Wonder Woman 2 that were in the big mall, because it was in a mall in Virginia. But also just like that one, I don't think they filmed there long. I think they were just kind of there for maybe 2 weeks to a month, filmed a couple of scenes, and then they were out, which most films typically do at this point.
Yeah. My boyfriend did background casting for that one, so he was there for
nice.
months and the production. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I think it's say, hey, you still got time to get in on the DC thing, with James Gunn taking it over, and I think he likes to film in Atlanta. So,
yes. So fun fact, I am actually in the DC universe twice. Well, not technically the DCU, but I'm in the DC world twice, and I'm in the Marvel universe as well. So I have actually been in both. But since there's so much revamping and so many multiverse things. I mean, I might be able to pop back up. I mean, hopefully they'll have me back. I don't think there's any continuity issues now at this point because there's so much going back and forth. So hopefully
it's all about the multiverse now. So I mean, it's just one of your variants just floating around out there.
You know, at this point, yes, that's how I'm going to pitch myself. I'm like, look, that was my old variant. Just bring me back for something else.
You know what's interesting about that is that, like, back in the day, like, if you look at like TV shows from the 80s, right? Sometimes they would have an actor back like 3 times as different characters.
Yep.
And it just was accepted back then because they're like, hey, we like working with this person. We know they're a good actor. We'll just dress them up a little different and they're a different person. And now we don't do that anymore. Now it's like, oh, no, we can't do that. And I wonder if it's just a part of the trudge towards, like, we have to get to absolute verisimilitude and have everything be really real, or like, just the world opening up and like having more options of talented people, right? Because I don't know.
I think it might be a little bit of both, right? I mean, because I know with like, especially with lore and a lot of like comic book cultures, especially, it's like, in the internet, internet now is like accuracy. I mean, like I have like a wiki page for something I did, and I'm like, wait, what? There's a wiki page for this little thing. So it's like everything is like so precise now. But then you have like, for example, like look at Nolan and Denis Villeneuve, who work with a lot of the same people in a lot of their movies, and it's like we believe it, right? They're like, okay, these are clearly different movies, but it's okay. But like you said, back in the day, and like soap operas, you'd have someone die 5 times and still come back either as the same person or someone else, and people were just like, oh my gosh, and it's like they just accepted it. But now it's just like, oh no, that person was here, and then and then now studios are having to say, oh yeah, hey, we messed up, sorry, and then appeasing to the fans and stuff. It's actually kind of funny. It's really funny.
We live in the age of what people call nowadays, I think the term is forensic fandom.
There you go. Yep. Yep.
Actually, the funniest double casting I've ever seen was from Law and Order. I worked, like, they used to run it on TNT all the time back when I worked at Turner. And I remember I was watching a marathon, and in one episode they had a lady playing a hooker, like, she was kind of like a key witness. And then in the very next episode, years later, they cast her as an ADA. I'm guessing like somebody was definitely not paying attention to like the cast in these 2 episodes, because like they showed it like back to back, and you're like, wow, this lady's really coming up in her life,
Right. And I think it's kind of like one of those things where I in Law and Order is one of those shows where it's just like it's such a running machine, and it's just like, oh yeah, sure, yeah, come on. And then, like, the likelihood, right, of that happening, they're probably like, no one's going to be watching this and realizing, and they play them back to back. You're like, we're watching. We can see it.
I mean, maybe she just got into a good program, got some education, like, got cleaned up. I don't know.
There you go. That's where our imaginations come in.
Yeah. I feel like that. Part of me just wants to believe like she got her life together. She changed her name, and now she's out there, trying to help people.
There you go. I love it.
So you said, okay, so you're an actor, and I'm an actor. I come from that world. It's a grind. It can be, but you also said director, producer, writer. So where in your journey did you start with that, like with the creation of things, and what kind of precipitated that?
Well, it's so funny. I literally was talking to somebody about this yesterday. So I when I first started this journey and like really took it seriously, and I will always hold true. Like I am an actor through and through. That is just who I am. And I think as the journey started going, I've always loved the movies. I've always loved just creating and filmmaking, and I love to tell stories, right? And I think that's where, kind of the director love started to kind of pull in. I did a couple of little pieces in college, but I was kind of like, oh, well, this is just something I wrote and directed, so I'll just do because I have to do this for this class. But really acting is what I wanted to do. And just as I've been in the space more, it's interesting because then I started finding myself produce. And I think all of that kind of came from a place of, well, I want to create the things that I want to be in and I see myself in. I'm not necessarily going to wait for Hollywood to give these opportunities to me, and so with that, that's kind of where the whole, all right, well, let's make it. How do we make it? And then being in the space enough as an actor, seeing different things, seeing how things are done wrong, really, I think is probably what taught me how to do things right. And I was thinking about this recently. I remember years ago, an older gentleman was kind of like my mentor, and he just looks at me. He goes, "You're going to be a producer." And I was like offended because I was like, I am an actor. I know my abilities. And I talked to him like, it was like years after the fact. And I was like, I'm not going to lie, man, that really upset me. I can't believe you said that. Blah, blah, blah. And I was young and, 19 and trying to prove myself and everything. And he was like, I didn't say it. That was like the only thing that you were going to do. I was just saying it as like, this is also something that you're going to do. And I was like, oh. And now it's like producing. I actually really enjoy producing. I would say I'm definitely more of a creative producer, but what producing does is I'm a businessman as well. So I'm 100% a creative. Like that is who I am, but I have a businessman drive. And I think producing helps me do that. And the kind of just a natural leader anyways that kind of fulfills that, to be able to then also uplift other people that I know, and putting people in positions that maybe they might not be able to have on a normal set or quote unquote normal set, to then now create our sets to be the quote unquote the normal Hollywood sets, to really kind of raise that bar. So that way, no matter who's on our sets, no matter what position they're given, they're getting the work, the titles and things that they would on, or might not get on a bigger Hollywood set, but still getting the same type of experience, and then having a quality product to be able to showcase as well too. So that's kind of all how it encompasses. And I think really just all rooted in just storytelling. I just love storytelling. And I tell my crew all the time, I'm like, obviously we're here to get it done the right way. But it's all rooted in, that childlike love that why we're all here in the first place. You know what I mean? So while we're going through all the auditions, the ups, the downs, the ebbs and flows of what this industry is, I think everything I tried to hold true is like, I'm still that little kid that is either watching the Oscars or still like watching Jurassic Park, wondering like how in the world they made this happen, and it being so real to me, and I want to be able to give that to other people, but also I still want to hang on to that as I'm creating as well. So that's how it kind of all lined up. Yeah.
Let me take it back to something you just said before. So you said that you started doing this because you didn't want to wait for the opportunities that they weren't going to give you. What kinds of opportunities were those, and what kinds of opportunities did you then create for yourself?
Yeah. So I mean, the reality is, I'm a big black dude. You know what I mean? I'm always Hollywood, at least, and it's changing. I want to just say that it is changing, but I was seen by people that were kind of objective to the industry, but also those in the industry that I was going to be the funny fat friend, or I was going to be the thug, the bouncer, and all these things. And I don't think there's anything wrong with playing some of those characters or whatever. But I am not someone that likes to be boxed in anywhere, right? I want to be someone that is. You put any opportunity in front of me, I will flourish, right? I tend to lean more towards the drama side because naturally I'm just a goofy, funny guy anyways. But they want to put me in those roles. And I'm like, okay, that's cool, but I also want to do these. So that's what really pushed me to create pieces that, what would I want to see myself in? What do I want to see as well, too, just as a viewer? And then how can I, navigate and put myself in a story that does make sense, but also that I can say, well, I made it, or, we created this as a team. And it's like, you know, who's going to tell us no when we're the ones creating it, you know? And sometimes I think when in a world of people that think that something can't be done, you just have to show them sometimes, or it's, I'm just going to do it regardless, and you're going to have no choice but to see it, and, you know, hate it or love it. You're not going to stop me from doing it. So,
Well,
yeah.
it sounds like you just want it, like the opportunity to play a complete person,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, and not
Mm-hmm.
just pieces of what people see you as.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's it's important because, you know, we all know how it is, the co-star like grind, you know, you in I've been very blessed and I'm very fortunate to have had certain things. I mean, those roles have, you know, definitely propelled me to where I'm at now and where I'm going, you know. But yeah, you know, it's there's not a sense of art when you're saying, you know, oh, here's your coffee, ma'am, and, you know, you're handing something to somebody. You know, it's there's there's a level of fulfillment that, you know, you're missing, you know. And I come from stage first, you know, and you know, having, you know, spending, you know, weeks or months, you know, on a project, and you're building, you know, something physically and, you know, just, you know, mentally and spiritually, I guess, with the character, and being able to live with that person for some time. I mean, that is the difference between, you know, film and also, you know, stage. But, you know, until you get those opportunities, on the higher scale, so to speak, where you can actually flesh out a character and be able to do that. I mean, I just had an opportunity recently where I think it was the first time that I actually was able to like really, really create something on a larger scale. And I had so much fun. And I believe, you know, and I say this very humbly, but it's interesting because I think when the writers and the creators of it, you know, they write something, right? And I think that's the beauty of being an actor is the writers and creators will write something, and then you are then bringing that to life, but also in your own way. And I was able to really create things for this character that, you know, it was very fulfilling. You know, I actually had the opportunity to do it, and it was a lot of fun. And so much so where like they were, you know, asking me questions like, wait, how do you, and where do you go when you do this, and how do you, you know, and it's flattering, but also like one of those kind of head nods. There's like, yeah, no, this is, if you give some of us, you know, the opportunity to do these things, we will, you know, be able to showcase what we've been working for, you know. And I think that's what's the beauty of class, and also creating the own work. It's your exercises to be able to get to those points. But yeah.
Well, it's become, I don't want to say trendy for actors, and especially like in recent years,
Mm-hmm.
it's like there's almost been like this movement of, you see more actors taking over behind the scenes, like becoming producers. Like in television, it's a very common thing. You see like an actor be on a series for so long, then suddenly you see their name popping up in the producer credits.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and now you've got like, say you get like Issa Rae with
Mm-hmm.
Insecure, Michaela Cole's another one we like to bring up here. Well, like I May Destroy You, like taking ownership of that series when, you know, after so many people had turned her down. And you're just like, and you just, it's excuse me, more and more and more. It's like, I think like actors have collectively figured out, like, if you really want to have that career, it's almost by extension of to really fully realize your potential as an actor, you almost kind of have to make that shift behind the scenes to either be getting into directing and or producing. Did you find that was that transition easy for you because maybe your mind was already kind of pointed in that direction, or was there kind of like a period where you kind of have to say, okay, I have to put on this other hat now? And then is it an easy thing to just shift gears, or is it more just like a natural extension of just wanting to be a storyteller?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I too I definitely agree. There's definitely been a shift in general. I will say you'll start to see a lot of the actors going to producers and stuff like that. The number one reason is for money, because honestly they get more of a payout on the back end as a producer. So that's like usually what you'll see is if there's a newer actor in a series, around that season 3, 4 period, that's when you're like, hey, so I've been on this show. I'll take a pay cut on the front end or, what have you, and throw me on the producer side because they're going to get more money on the back end. So that's always like a smart tactic. Damon Idris actually did that for Snowfall. I think that he had actually approached them by season 3 and was like, hey, look. And they were like, okay, cool. And, now he was making more, being a producer on that. As far as me, I think it came from, I will say it came natural. And it was something that I already had been doing and kind of pushing for. Again, that business side of me kind of already was like there and was like, this plus this equals this. So it just makes sense to do that. But it definitely became more intentional, even more so as the more I progressed in my career, because I realized a few things. I don't want to be categorized as the average actor, right? I don't want to be looked at as the norm in any capacity. So in order to do that, I needed to be an outlier. And how can I be an outlier? And to be an outlier is to not be one-dimensional. And I think that was really something that, like I said, it was something that was already in me that I already did, but it was like, no, this needs to really drive home. And I had a producer tell me back in college, actually, he had said, you have to be good at everything and be great at the one thing that you want to do. And that really stuck to me because I was like, stuck with me because I was like, this is true. So, and the difference of the respect that you see as well, because even when directors or producers find out, oh, you direct, wait, okay. Or, oh, you produce, and even little things like, because I'm a big camera nerd when it comes to what to shoot on and things like that. But I don't understand it just from a directorial perspective. I understand it even from a DP's perspective, and understanding, what, and of course, am I fleshed out just like a DP? I can tell you all this, not quite, but I can have a conversation, so much so where it gives you a different level of respect when coming on set. And I've seen it, it's not even just on purpose to be like, hey, let me get the respect of these people, but it's just like, okay, cool, because I understand everything, I'm able to communicate to a camera op, also a gaffer, to know where I stand for lighting and little things like that, and then also the bigger picture of what we're selling as well. And when you're able to just understand that, you're able to have conversations with multiple people versus, and I think that a lot of actors are one-dimensional, right? And there's also nothing wrong with that if that's kind of your strong suit, right? Some actors are like, I don't care about cameras, I don't care about directing, I don't care about writing, I just want to just focus on this, right? And if that's the case, cool, no worries. But as far as Kevin, I was like, I feel like what would better suit me is making me an outlier in a field of of the same plant, so to speak, right? And now kind of going into this new aged world, when I was coming out of college and kind of going into the real world, that was really the big push of this whole content creation and our phones and TikTok and Vine and all these things really changed the game as far as content creating. And they've been platforms for Quinta Bronson and Issa Rae and all these people to be able to get to another point. And I think that is something that can be a tactic. It's like, hey, we have to create our own stuff sometimes in order to get seen, because if we're sitting here waiting to get seen, they're going to, either continue to look over us, or if it's going to take a lot longer for them to actually see us in a field of, again, the same plants. You want to stand out. And I think now actors, especially, or just really anybody in this industry, personally, I would say, if you're wanting to get to the next level, you can't just do the one thing. You've got to kind of branch out and really learn that other side. You don't have to be amazing at it. You don't have to say, okay, if I'm a 94 out of 100 for an actor, I don't have to be a 94 out of 100 for to be a DP. Maybe you can be a 50 out of 100, but it's better than being a 2 out of 100. You know what I mean? You could really learn certain things that will make it just ultimately better, and then will pour back into the one thing that you want to do. I'm going on a rant here, so
No, I
I'll
love
shut
it
up.
because I was like thinking how, I love it when people, I was about like, when you started on this path, I was thinking like, oh, I got my follow-up question. Oh, no, he covered that. No, he covered that one too. Okay, great. Because, I came from stage 2, and in college,
Mhm.
I really admired the people who were out there creating and producing
Mhm.
plays, and I didn't know how to get started.
Yeah.
And those people are the ones everybody wanted to work with because those people had opportunities for other people
Mhm.
too, right?
Mhm.
But like back then, they were teaching people like, you show up, you learn your lines, you've done your work, you put in your work. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's so much more now. And it's interesting because you'll hear some actors complain about, well, I have to do social media too, and I have to do content creation too. And it's
Yeah.
like, it's a mindset thing because, like you were
Mhm.
saying, it's like, well, you don't have to, but if you do,
Yep.
you might be leagues ahead of everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you find a way to figure out what inside you wants to speak up and say something, anything can be stupid, doesn't have to be. There's a woman I
Right.
follow on Instagram who literally just dresses up in 80s outfits and dances with a fan on her
I
in
love
the
it.
hair pulling. And so it doesn't have to be brilliant. It can just be
Yeah.
something dumb that makes you laugh, that makes other people laugh, and it doesn't
Mhm.
matter. But like, to do something that is interesting to people. So I'm just curious, I guess my follow-up question for you then
Mhm.
is, you know, at what point did you transition from that mindset of like,
Mhm.
I'm showing up, I'm doing the work, to, ooh, epiphany, if I do
Mhm.
this, maybe I'll stand out more. And what was that shift in confidence like? Because that's what I'm hearing a lot of you talking about,
Yeah.
is the shift in confidence, the empowerment that comes from creating your own stuff, and also knowing the other side of things and not just being
Mhm.
like, well, I know my actor stuff, so I'm done.
Yeah.
But like the respect you said, the respect, the
Yeah.
empowerment, the confidence. That's what I want to hear about.
Yeah, yeah. I think like I said, there was definitely like a level that I felt like it just kind of made sense. I just loved creating. And I think really what helped with that is I surrounded myself with people that knew more about those other things, and I just took the initiative to take interest and learn. Also, I will say, I just fully immersed myself in the craft, right? So YouTube University, right? If I'm watching acting videos, I'm watching film videos. I'm watching, and some of it was trial and error. It's really interesting because when I look at myself as a producer now, I'm like, how and when did this really start? And it's
Mhm.
just like, oh, I just kind of just did it, and I will say one of my film partners. I've produced pretty much all of his movies, and it just kind of became a thing where really, I mean, producing is just a lot of facilitating. A lot of facilitating, a lot of like recruiting. It's a lot of just management as well. And I think that those skills somewhat came innate with me. And so what happened was, as we did more projects, more obstacles came about, more things kind of, came into, and like even from our last project, I mean, I feel like I'm constantly growing. I would say the most recent project that we did was probably the one I was pushed most as a producer. I mean, we were talking, legalities on things. We were talking more contracts. We were flying people in from LA, and like it just became a whole thing dealing with high, level managers and agents and things like that. So that one was definitely the push. But it's like I kind of had to take my look, like how did I get here? And it just really was just doing,
Mhm.
and through that, just other people having ideas, other people that I believed in that had ideas that I think that, hey, this can be seen. And just also just immersing myself in that and saying, okay, hey, you're good at this, you're in this lane, I'll do this, and maybe I'll act in it as well. And we'll just kind of continue to create and just learning in that environment. I think that is probably the more I've been in the environment, and the more, again, I just started to see the shift. It was always there, like, okay, I just want to make films and have fun, and like, and this will be good. And then I started to just see I don't want to be, it was just this interesting thing, especially after I moved here, you know, and I was doing this and I was pursuing it on the professional side, so to speak. I was like, how can I be different from everyone else? Right. And, you know, I was intentional about, I just really just wanted to just do and create anyways. But then I was like, the more I started to talk to other actors and I started to see how, I guess, like I said, just one dimensional people were, and there's nothing wrong with that. I was just like, I don't want to do that. I already have, I guess you could say I already have a couple things already counting against me anyways. So it's like, well, if I put myself in these positions to look differently or portray differently or to actually have more than what seems to be on the plate, so to speak, then it just will look different. And even, like I said, even to most recently where, you know, like I said, I just got off of a show earlier this year and we had a film showcase, and like literally one of the directors, I said, hey, if you can make it here, just sending this over to you. And she was like, why didn't you tell me you were the director? And I was like, oh, I guess it just kind of never came up. She was like, no, you need to tell me these type of things. I want to know these type of things. This is good for me to know, because I had no idea this is something that you do. And I think that that's the other perspective as well, is like, you know, I think a lot of actors are just, you know, especially even seasoned actors are just, okay, here's just my box. I don't really want to, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's like whenever you're working at a place, right, and you talk to the people in the different departments, right? Usually if you're just in a department, you know, most people are just like, I don't care about what they do over there. That's just what they do. I just, you know, but it's like taking interest in something else, right? And be like, oh, actually, yeah. Did you know about blah, 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 blah? It's like, wait, how do you know about that? You work over there, you know? And it's just this I think, togetherness that it builds, but also it just helps the well-rounded, you know, machine that's being ran. And I'm even more so fine tuning that and realizing, no, this is something that needs to be specific, and people need to know that, you know, as I present myself, which is something I'm also getting more comfortable about, right? Because I'm an actor, and that's typically what I want people to know me as. But as I progress more, I'm like, no, I actually need to really showcase differently, like, you know, and be more intentional even about that, because people like, you know, the director I just worked with, like, people want to know, and they somewhat need to know in some cases, because, you know, who knows, that could be something else where she's like, well, I want you to direct this piece, or, hey, let me see your work. Also, here, take you under the wing, whatever it might be, to then just further that aspect, which ultimately helps the whole thing.
Yeah.
Is it just kind of also like knowing that like those people know that you kind of speak their language, whether it's the camera person or the director, the producer, like, because you've got access to these other tools, so like they're not going to talk to you like someone who's like, I'm just an actor. I'm only here to, like, you know my lines and not bump into the furniture. Whereas you've kind of like, okay, you know what cameras are using, you know what they do, like the light. It's a different mindset.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm sorry, Billy, you look like you were ready to ask something.
No, so we kind of addressed like the how you got there. But I wanted to know, like, if there was, in that journey to becoming, you know, Uber actor, was there any point when, you know, as an actor, you always have this like mentality of, most people do, I think, have this mentality of anything, give me anything, please, I want to work, right? So many come from that scarcity mentality. So was there ever a point when you realized, like, had an epiphany that you had shifted over, had an epiphany that you were like, oh no, I don't have that mentality anymore. Now I know that I can create, that I'm empowered, and I don't have to wait around for scraps. I'm wondering when that shift occurred, because it seems like it has.
Yeah, and one, I appreciate you recognizing that. I think it's a journey over time. But I will say, I started studying with my mentor Tim Phillips back in 2019, and I really felt I realized I had an actual craft with him. I found my craft by working through him, and I got so much more confidence by working with him and just really exploring certain things that I had never had before. And then just with I'm a natural. I'm a lover at first, but also I'm a lion. You know what I mean? I'm just very much just like So that this idea of trying to box me in, it's like I was constantly, I guess always fighting. Especially in this realm, because I was always this was one of those things where I've had to prove myself my whole life, right? So this was one of those in this industry. I'm not a 6'2", 8-pack, Nubian prince. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just not my thing. However, through trials, through losses and things like that, I've been able to kind of build that. But I will say, studying with him and then just kind of moving through, and I kind of was finding myself as I was, I guess, tangoing with heavy hitters and things like that. I was like, oh, I've got something here. And I think there was a point where I will say, yes, there was like a groove that I was finding, and it was a switch, and I realized what is for me is for me, and what is for you or whoever is for them. And nothing that is meant for me will cross over or take or be lost to you, and vice versa, right? And I think really realizing that, and just really coming to those terms, and just really releasing and just being like, I'm going to be in my flow. And as long as I do the work, and Kevin, and feel fulfilled with the work that I'm doing, everything else will be in line, right? And then I'm also not going to just wait for opportunities. I'm going to create and do and stay in this as much as possible in order to continue to grow this, even when I'm getting no's or whatever. And it's interesting, because I will say, between 21 and also I will say, when I left another agent and had another agency that actually believed in me, and really I was able to share, hey, this is what I'm looking for. I don't mind being thug number one or whatever, but that's not the legacy of who I am. Here's who I am. I want to be on a team that sees that, and having the support of them. I mean, my career took a complete 180, and it's still going. And so, you having the confidence to say those things, but when I first moved down here, my best friend had told me, and he actually forgot he even told me this. He was like, I don't even remember when I told you this, but, he had said, embrace the uncomfortable. He was like, as you go there, you're embarking on this journey, you're leaving your family and everything like that, embrace the uncomfortable, because, you never know what's going to be on the other side of that. And I think that whenever I have those moments, because I still have those moments, I don't know, and, things like that, I'm human, but it's like, no, let's take that leap, or let's take that jump. And, and I've kind of built that confidence over time. And so much so that, like, it's like, okay, I'll actually share a quick story. So one of my buddies, I just put on an audition the other day, right? And so in the audition, the audition was mine, and then I realized that like, as he was about to put me on tape, I was like, oh, they actually said that we could put I could put a friend on tape. So I was like, why don't you hop on with me? And he was like, oh, sure, like, okay. And so what was interesting was that, he got the call back for it. It was my audition, but he got the call back for the audition, right? And what was interesting is, like, I know he was like feeling bad. What was funny was, like, after we finished, he was like, wouldn't it be crazy if, like, you got the call back and I didn't? He was like, yeah. I was like, no, bro. Like, if it did, whatever. But it actually being the exact opposite. And, I was talking to him, and I was like, bro, like, you don't owe me anything. He was like, well, I guess I should pay you and your agent or whatever. It's like, you don't owe me anything, because if you book this is for you. But also, I have the confidence to say, of course, yeah, would I like to book? Of course, like, that's, of course, who wouldn't want to book, a SAG commercial? You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, it's not a loss to me, and I think that mindset has really changed. Instead, I say, okay, that wasn't for me. That was actually for him. And actually, if I was able to be a vessel to give him something, and that was my purpose in the moment, that's awesome. And because I know that and I'm happy to do that, I will be rewarded tenfold. And I've already been rewarded, for the work I've done, and I know where I'm going. And I think that, hopefully I'm answering your question. I think that, just kind of over time and just really realizing that and just making that snap to be like, wait, no, I think that what's for me is for me. It carries in so many aspects of our lives. And, cause you're never at a loss, you know what I mean? If you really hunker down in that belief, especially in this, there's no loss or wins. There's just opportunities for you and opportunities for other people. And that just might not have been an opportunity for you. And you never know what that opportunity could have done. You could audition for something that's one line and they'd be like, oh no, she's too good for this. And you think, oh man, I lost it. Oh my gosh, I didn't get it. And the next thing you know, that writer or director is already thinking about you for another project that's far bigger. And you could meet them 2 years down the line, 5 years down the line, or even in the same show. And then, yeah. I'm ranting.
A healthy mindset to go through. Like, so many actors are like, I'm not going to go to this commercial audition because it's beneath me or it's not worth my time. Mm-hmm. And you never know what those things, or the student film. And, there's been so many opportunities I've gotten because I did someone's student film. And years later, they have a production company and they're, hit me up for voiceover and they're paying me good rates. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, so it seems like like you're saying, like, look beyond, like you can't look beyond, but you have to, right?
Yeah.
Have you found that it's been easier just in general? Like everything gets easier when you kind of adopt the kind of like the abundance mindset versus the scarcity mindset. Because now we've had guests, one of our past guests talked about this idea that they used to have at Disney called plussing, like always being additive or kind of being collaborative versus being competitive, where it's just like, okay, how can I help someone else? Because, their success in some ways, it's kind of like having that rising tide lifting all ships. Even they might be up a little higher, but I came up too. So even like you said before, even if like in that audition, you didn't come away with nothing, even if you didn't get the part, but your friend did. So now, like, again, it's
so I won because he won. You know what I mean? And that to me. See, because when we have and it's so easy, and please know this has come from a lot of work. This has come from a lot of confidence building. This has come from a lot of, just intentionality, and I think that, it's such a switch. There's so many people that I've met throughout my life, and especially in this industry, because this industry does have a way of making you feel like, if you don't have that, and we deal with a lot of no's, especially as actors, if we see them as no's, right? If you don't have it, if you don't have that booking, then you're less than, right? That person that sometimes may not be a quote unquote better actor than you. They might get that part and so on. And then we're like, but if you're able just to take that away and just say, what's in Kevin's lane, right? What is in Kevin's lane? And because the truth is like, there is nothing that's in my lane that anybody can dismantle, change, or whatever. Because if you start getting in someone else's lane, it doesn't work out that way. You know what I'm saying? Brandon, you have a lane, and this is what you do, and nobody can control that lane like you can. No matter how good or bad they are or whatever, that's your lane. And when I start to see things like that, there are reminders, you know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. There's like, hey, if I'm up for a series reg and somebody else gets it, there's like, oh shoot, man, that would have been good money and things like that. But it's like, okay, cool. I had the opportunity. To be able to do this. I was seen. And, a lot of times there's so much outside of our control anyways. And that's just life in general. I'll share a quick story. I remember I went to the Atlanta Film Festival back in 2018 and this guy was there. He was a director, and it was like the director, actor, communication panel. And he was talking about something that happened back in 2001. And I share this story all the time because it is so pivotal. If there was a switch moment, that was definitely one of them that definitely added to that thought process. he said back in 2018, back in 2018, whenever he was on this panel, he was saying, I used to work in casting. It's 2001. I'm in New York. And he said he's casting a commercial. And everyone there, they couldn't quite find the right person for this, right? So this Indian gentleman comes in, and when I tell you he kills it, he kills it. I mean, everyone's on the floor. They're cracking up, laughing. They love this guy, right? He walks out. He owned the room. After he walks out, they all look at each other, and they all kind of had this agreement of, we can't. They took his headshot and put it in the no category. Why? Because this was 2001. This was after 9/11, and a brown face on a commercial. I know this is so uneducated because very different region. There's so much that's wrong with that, but a brown face on TV would not have been accepted at that time. And so they had to put him in another category. Now, we all know that has nothing to do with it, but the masses of where we were at the time, the foolishness and ignorance of America, it just would not have been accepted. But he did everything right, and who knows what he would if he would have said, you know what, I quit, I don't want to do this. Like, you never know. And who knows where he's gone off to do. The director said he doesn't know if he wasn't able to keep up with the guy, but he was like, he remembered him and he remembered how well he did. But he was like, it wasn't his fault. There was nothing that he did. Unfortunately, we had to think about a bigger picture that is unjust. It's not fair, but we did have to. And in a marketing standpoint, especially for a commercial, you just have to think about those kind of things. And yeah, but he did everything right. But if we take it as, I lost, I did something wrong, so-and-so, then 99% of the time, there's nothing that you did wrong. It could be like, oh, you look like my ex, or, oh, he's too small or too tall or whatever. And, it's just, you could be perfect. Or, you know what, hey, I just don't want that person. I don't know. It's literally anything. But that definitely helped kind of shape my thought process as well, too. To be like, did I do the work? Does Kevin feel that he did the work? If I don't, that's on me. And how can I change that? You know what I mean? But if I did the work and I did my job, as Bryan Cranston would say, I'm auditioning for my career. I'm not auditioning for the job. And it goes far beyond just what's happening right in front of you.
How do you self-motivate? Because a lot of actors, that's the thing. I always thought, like, I want to be my own boss. I want to work from home, and nobody's telling me exactly when to do things. But then you realize, like, oh crap, nobody's telling me when to do things. So, yeah, how do you self-motivate? Especially the stuff that you don't have to do. Like, if you get an audition and it's due in 2 days, like, you can do the bare minimum, or you can do more. Then the other stuff, like the content creation, the stuff, that they don't teach you to do in school, like read the plays that this whole theater's season is going to be, and then like email ahead of time and say, hey, I want to audition for this role. Those things, you don't have to do those things. Nobody's holding you to them. So how do you self-motivate?
That's a great question. Because I will tell you, I know I've been like, hoorah, and yeah. I combat laziness quite a bit. I really do, because I sometimes have two different extremes. I'm either going, or I'm like, and this is something that's not talked about much. I'm very fortunate enough to have had acting be able to essentially pay the bills and things like that. And it's so interesting because when you're in a hustle mode, when you're having to work and you're like, damn, I got like 5 auditions I got to do, and then I got to go to acting class, and you're trying to juggle. At least for me, there's this overwhelmingly like, all right, boom, I got to do this. But when you're like, okay, actually, you don't have to actually go to work, and you have all this free time. It's kind of one of those things where you're like, oh, okay. So if I wanted to, not that I would, but if I wanted to, I could wake up at 2:00, in the afternoon. I could play video games all night, So it is kind of one of those things where I have to keep myself busy. I do always try to have something, right? I try to have something, and that's, I think, what motivates me. And then just really putting myself on a schedule. That I feel whenever I have a schedule, it's like this my own like task, task. I'm like, okay, if I'm waking up, okay, 6:30, I got to wake up, and then I'm gonna meditate for this, and I'm gonna do this. And so it's like that accountability of like my past self that's like, no, you better do all these things. And then when I'm not, I'm like, ugh. But also having grace if like things pivot, I could have an audition come up, things like that. But I think really it's just putting myself on a schedule. When I have something, right? When I have something, like I have something to prep for or to do, like the task already gives me the motivation to be able to do it. And I do try to stay busy as possible, but those lulls or those, I'm like, how can I further grow me and my career, and like, and where can I continue to learn? And part of that is really putting myself on the schedule. Cause yes, it is sometimes it gets very, like I said, I do combat that. I have to combat that sometimes, because there is that level of like the two extremes, right? But also I'm also falling feeling out the balance of that too, because I'm also learning that, the whole toxic work habits. I don't want to be that person that never vacations, or like, I'm on the grind. And if I don't, and I think also that's part of confidence too, because I don't know if you felt this before, but like there was always this, especially comes from a scarcity mindset. And I will say I auditioned far less with my old agent than I did with my new one. Right. And there was this like, kind of like, well, I'd go back home and to DC, and I like, if I was there, I was kind of be like, all right, I'll make sure I don't have an audition. If I got an audition, I got to find out where to go. I gotta do this. I gotta do that. And I'm just like, I'm supposed to be enjoying the time with my family. Like, what am I doing here? And if I get an audition, cool. Like, let the time, you'll find out how to do it then, or it's okay to say no too, and I know that also comes from a place of privilege, right? If you have more in a certain situation, then of course you could say no to some. But I think also just as I've matured more in that, I've realized that, hey, it's okay to say no to certain things. But yeah, I've got to get back to the original question. I have to put myself on a schedule to do that, because if not, I mean, I could be playing Helldivers for like hours, and which I've definitely done for, a little bit, but I've had to back off. I was like, all right, I'm not going to play these games too much, because it'll consume me. So the balance.
Well, what you said about, I mean, it goes back to what you said before when you're talking about the toxic work habits. If you think what is for you, then you don't have to always be grasping at something.
Exactly.
It's like what the I don't know if it's Scottish or Irish. They say, what is for you cannot get by you.
That's true. That is true. That is so true. Yeah. That's I'm gonna have to use that.
I think it helps if you can really nail the accent, but I can't. At least not just without any prep. So we're just gonna.
You and me both. I
have to Americanize it for the sake of the podcast.
You did better than I would have done. I would have, it would have sounded like British and Australian somehow. So
yeah, my wife watches a lot of British crime drama, so you occasionally get the Scottish or the Irish kind of filtering in there. So
yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, man, like where can people find you online if they want to hit you up for any reason?
Yeah. I have pretty much all social medias. I'm mainly active on my Facebook. It's under Kevin Saunders, and then Instagram is Kevo_the actor. Which I think I'm actually going to change. I'm actually going to change that, because again, talk about boxing myself in. I don't just want to be seen as just that. So I actually inboxed a guy who has Kevin Saunders, like at Kevin Saunders, and he ignored me. I was like, yo, bro, like I'll throw you a couple bucks, like, and he's not even active on there. So as of right now,
the Kevin Saunders.
Yeah.
I might have to see if that's available. Yeah.
See, I did that with my Facebook years ago because I realized someone already had Brandon Duke, so I went with the Brandon Duke.
Ooh.
Well, and you can do like Kevin _ Saunders or Kevin. I think there's ways to do that too.
Those are taken too. Yeah,
Oh,
I
really?
looked. Yeah. I think those are actually more active than the actual Kevin Saunders. And I think he's just hanging on to it just because he's like, I have the power. I am the one.
Squatter.
So Kevo
Underscore the actor.
got it. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'll find you on there.
Pending the rebranding.
Look, I'll give it some time before I change it. It might not be, I'll give it some time. I'll go on there now. Kevin Saunders, like Kevin Saunders decided to just destroy his Instagram now, and there's like a little window, and all the Kevin Saunders.
We'll have to do like the little close, the little, when they fade to black at the end, and it says Kevo has since changed his Instagram handle.
I love it.
Kevin Saunders then went on to change his Instagram handle 3 more times.
Still seeking who he truly is.
There are advantages to having a name that is unique, like mine, but then there's also disadvantages. So yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we'll put up the info for people to find you. Is there anywhere else you didn't say that you have a website or anything like that?
Actually, website is currently being constructed because now I want to create something that does filter into my productions as well. My production company is attached to my handle as well too. It's a little complicated, but it's Aristrol's Quest Productions. I'll spell it real quick: ARISTROLLES Quest Productions, normal spelling. That's attached to my Instagram handles and everything. And we're about to start our proof of concept, or my proof of concept for my feature. We will be having a private screening for all the donors and stuff like that, and some of the folks here that helped get our last film done. Our last film is called Pa. I helped EP that. It's about a gentleman, older gentleman who's a Vietnam vet who since lost his wife, and he's trying to figure out what is the next step in his life. And so he is given an opportunity to be a PA, hence Pa, on a film set. And so it's kind of like a fish out of the water comedy about, a guy just trying to find his footing in life. And then he befriends the director, who is also at a different stage of his life, starting out in a career and trying to figure out his footing and stuff. And it's awesome. We hired Tom Virtue, who is Steve Stevenson and Even Stevens. So he was an amazing guy to work with. And Sorian Subkota, who is in some of Mike Flanagan's shows, House of the Fallen Usher and The Midnight Club. And so they are two leads. And also Anissa Matlock as well, who's in Powers and a few other things as well. So yeah, it was amazing working with everyone, and we're super excited for that. So be on the lookout for where they'll be showcasing and things. And we're excited.
Well, definitely let us know when it happens, and we'll share it to our stories. So
thank you. I appreciate that.
That will be all for this episode. To keep up with the show, follow us on social media at Scratch Claw Push. If social media isn't your thing, you can contact us at scratchclawpush@gmail.com. To learn more about the show, visit scratchclawpush.com. This podcast has been a Carcutta Media production. This recording, or any portion thereof, may not be reproduced or used in any manner whatsoever without the express written permission of the publisher, except for the use of brief quotations in a review. Copyright 2024 by Carcutta Media, LLC, all rights reserved.